open the meeting. I'm also going to announce that this meeting is being televised and taped for broadcast on the Lunenburg Public Access Channel and on YouTube, available later on YouTube. And with that, I'll just start with communications from. The only communication I have to report is it's my understanding that on August 23rd, which would be the date of our next meeting, we will hopefully know if and who the seventh member of the Finance Committee is. It's my understanding that they're meeting that day, or hoping to meet that day. The appointing committee is hoping to meet that day. I know that there are two people who are candidates, but that's about all I know. I know the name of one, but I don't know her, and then I also know that someone in the audience has her name in. So hopefully we'll have something. We'll be crowded again up here at the table. And that's the only comment that I have. Other than I will be after the last meeting, I did send an email to Joe McLaughlin about videotaping or televising all of our next meetings. Mm-hmm. So at the end of this meeting, I'm going to want to go through the calendar through December, just so I can give her a heads up about when we are likely meeting, so she can arrange for coverage. Are there any communications from anyone on the committee? Any communications from the public? Mr. Passios. Are you going to tell us where the weather vane is? No.
Actually, we'll discuss that next Tuesday night.
Okay.
Have some information on that. Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. Just to continue some conversation about my comments about the town of Ashby and them appropriating or actually approving expenditures for what we would call capital improvements in the town of Lunenburg, and deciding to pay for them through their tax bills in one tax year. Did some checking and talked with the town administrator in Ashby, and he stated that the town of Ashby does not borrow any money. They have virtually no debt, but they also have not done any major projects in many years. So this expenditure is to finally take care of some issues that sorely needed to be done, but the taxpayers are very willing to pay directly out of their pocket rather than borrow and have the expense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming back with that. Okay, now that we have actually everybody here who's here, one of the things that we did not take care of at the beginning of the year was the election of officers and the appointment of liaisons. So at this time, we're looking to have a chair, vice chair, and secretary. So if anyone wants to make any motions for any of those offices, please feel free to do so. We'll entertain some discussion and motions on that. So we'll start with chair, I guess. Okay.
If you're willing to resit as chair, I'd nominate you.
I'd second.
Oh, that's quick. That was quick.
It's going to go down fast.
Okay. Okay, then if there's nobody else that's particularly interested in it at this time, then yeah, I would be willing to do that, so.
Good.
I think you're finally getting.
That wasn't really a motion in a second, but.
Oh, well.
So John made a motion.
Yep, I'd like to nominate Terry Birchfield as chair of the committee.
And I would like to second.
Okay, any discussion? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, then I'll continue with the agenda. I won't pass it on. Yes, George?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I have no idea why you have such faith in me, other than, it means you don't have to do it. But no, thank you. I do appreciate
You do a great job.
the vote of confidence.
Good job.
Vice Chair, do I have any motions or comments on the Vice Chair?
I make a motion to ask John to take another term.
I will, if Your game,
Second that.
sure.
Okay, so we have George making a motion, Jay making a second. Are there any other motions? No other motions? Okay, all in favor of John continuing as the vice chair?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay. Secretary, Jay has done a yeoman's job this year, and I guess I'll ask, are you interested in continuing as the secretary?
I'd rather not.
You would rather not?
If there's
Okay.
if there's somebody willing to take it.
Okay. Is there anyone who's ready to step up for being the secretary for the committee?
I'll try it.
Okay, Hannah's willing to give it a go. Anybody else want to throw their hat in, or even as backup?
I would go as a backup, yeah.
You would be willing to back up?
Perfect.
Wonderful.
Okay, so basically then, could I have a motion?
Appreciate it.
I will nominate Hannah as secretary next year.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. And Mark, thank you for being willing to back that up. The other thing is that hopefully, again, because we've made the move to televise all the meetings, it should be easier to keep up with. I know Jay's been trying to work off of the little audio recorder, but
Yeah.
That's,
And I don't have a real job other than an at-home mom, so it might be a little easier as well.
being a mom is,
it's time consuming.
Yeah, I know.
we'll accept it that, okay.
Yeah,
And Jay, thanks for your service doing that.
I know.
Thank you.
Really
Yes,
appreciate
very
it.
good.
I love
For
it.
2 years,
I think
it's
you've done a
wonderful.
fantastic job.
Thank you, appreciate that very much.
Will you be taking the minutes for tonight for us?
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then, other than the officers, I'm sorry, John, did you have something?
Well, just because it's being televised, are you game to audit the tape, Hannah?
What does that
And
mean?
that is
It'll be on YouTube.
because it will be
Oh,
on
yeah.
YouTube. And so you really don't have to take notes, you can just
Watch it.
watch it and take
That was
notes on
my-
it if you
You will
like.
still want
I'd
to take
wanna
notes,
do
just to
both.
be, yeah,
Yeah.
just to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
yes.
I plan on doing both.
Good.
I will say that at the end of every meeting, they will give us a disc, and you can take the disc if you'd rather not wait for it to show up on YouTube.
It's
Usually
pretty-
it's
pretty-
there, like,
pretty
the next
quick.
day on
Yeah,
most
it's pretty
meetings,
quick.
so-
Yeah, a couple
Okay.
days.
I'm pretty
Okay,
Okay.
good.
Very
Great.
good.
confident in it.
So,
So, you still want me to take minutes? Or are we gonna?
are you prepared to work from the tape tonight?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Good.
then you
Let's
don't have
do
to
it.
take minutes, Jay. You
There
can actually,
I can send you what I have, and you can continue the draft.
all right, liaisons. Since you're working on the minutes over there, you have the list of the current liaisons, yes? Actually, I have a list of the current liaisons
Oh,
probably
yeah.
here.
Any committee reports?
All right, I think there's some, I know that the Board of Selectmen, when they met on Tuesday, discussed who we wanted to have liaisons with, and if we really wanted liaisons with everybody. I know that there are departments that we definitely want to make sure that we have people reaching out to
Yeah.
department heads. There's also committees that, whether we show up at the meetings or just make sure that they know that we are available at any time if anybody has a concern or a question or wants to bring something to the Finance Committee, sometimes it's good for them to just know. So, I will just go through and identify, again, for me, and if anybody disagrees with this, for some of the appointments, I would not take it to mean that you're expected to show up every time they meet. But again, just to reach out and make sure that people know that there's a communication method here. So let's start with public access cable. I have no idea why it's up there first. If anybody is interested in picking it up, that's fine. Otherwise, I don't mind staying with it.
I'm volunteering. It's
For public access cable? Okay, Mark is going to pick up public access cable. Capital planning, John, you are the member that's assigned by the board.
I can continue that if you'd like.
I have no problem with that. I think that basically he's done fantastically well representing the Finance Committee on that. committee as well, so, yes.
Very well.
All right,
And John will continue with the capital planning committee. And that's just, Heather, just to clarify, that's just a straight appointment, right? We don't have to vote on that, appointing a member to a committee. Finance appointing to capital planning.
I would think it doesn't hurt to make a motion.
Make a motion? Okay,
Oh, we will be busy.
okay. Well, we don't have to for liaisons. What's
Yeah.
different is capital planning is a voting member.
Yeah.
So that would be
okay.
what would make it
Okay,
different.
Okay.
So if someone wants to make a motion to have John Henshaw represent the Finance Committee on the
Capital planning.
Capital Planning Committee.
I make a motion to represent John on the capital planning committee.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. John's, okay, the Department of Public Works, again, John has been meeting with Public Works and all that entails. I don't know if you want to continue with that, or if there's anyone else who has an interest in picking that up and hanging with Jack.
I can, but, Jack is just wonderful to work with, and I recommend the experience. It's really quite good. So if anyone wants to take over for me, I'm sure that that would be fine with Jack. And any volunteers?
I'd volunteer if you want to give it up. I think you've done a great job, but
Yeah.
if you want to switch it up and do something different.
Fine, if you're aiming for the game for that, that would be great. Sure, George.
Yeah, I mean, it'd just be something different
Yeah,
and
Good.
just another opportunity to learn about what goes on
wonderful,
in town government, but yeah. thank you.
wonderful.
That would be great. Okay, so we have George Martin, the Department of Public Works. Council on Aging.
That was Cindy.
I have no idea what that is. Not what the Council on Aging is, but who's Cindy?
She was
She used to be a
with
member.
us.
Okay, so that's going to the way back.
Yeah.
it's
So
going way
that's
back.
before Mark came on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we haven't had one there for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know if we feel that we need one there, or if it actually, I mean, some of the information we get through Sue Doherty, not the Council on Aging.
I would argue that the Council on Aging and Library are pretty small departments. Maybe we can do a structure where we just touch base with them, on an informal basis without having a formal liaison.
Okay.
Sort of ad hoc.
Yeah.
Because then that would allow us to focus on the larger, more consequent, more
The
cost.
departments that take the big bites out of the budget.
Take more resources.
I think that's fine. I think, so we're talking library and we're talking Council on Aging.
Well, those are the two that came to mind because they've combined to have such a small percentage of the total town budget.
I think that's fine. Heather, do you think that it would matter either way? I think that basically the whole function of the liaison is just to be a point of contact with the committee, but I think it gets, people see it differently, and I'm not sure if all of the departments and committees understand the role, because I think what sometimes makes me uncomfortable is that the Board of Trustees will identify me as absent when I'm not really expected. So I think that the function of the liaison is kind of, and I know that the Sewer Commission will put the liaison on as, almost as a participant. So I think that was just, like one area of concern, but I think that basically, I don't know if I would shut them off.
Well, to address that concern, then I could step up and be the liaison for the COA and the library. And just sort of manage it with, say, every other month or so do a touch base, or every third month do a touch base,
Okay. Yeah, and I
guys
think
can live with
basically, yeah, the only time that I think that they really look for input is around budget time.
Yeah.
Or if they have questions about how a particular line in the budget
Yep.
exists, but they can also go to Heather for that.
Sure.
But it's also so that they don't get looked over.
Mhm.
I think that basically if we say, okay, well, they're a smaller piece of the budget, we
You
don't
mean
want to.
overlooked?
Thank you. Yes, overlooked, not looked over, sorry. So that'll be fine. And then the other thing that I will say is that the library meeting, I think they only meet once a month. Maybe twice a month, but once is a Thursday, and it usually
Yeah.
falls on our meeting day.
Mhm.
And the other is a Tuesday, or I think. But I haven't been for quite a while.
Yep.
The police department, currently Mark has expressed an interest in.
Yep, still interested.
Still interested, okay. Fire department, that's been George.
I love working with Chief Sullivan, but if somebody's looking for something different to do, I'm fine with it if anybody wants to do that. If not, I'll keep going with it, but whatever you guys want to do.
Does anybody down there have a burning desire to work with?
To learn about fire.
George is doing a good job
You
with
just
them,
put
if
the
he
wet
wants.
stuff on the red stuff.
Yeah.
You failed.
I'm out.
I don't know. I just thought that you've done so well with it and that you've kind of had like
Yeah.
a passion with it
Sure.
that
mean,
I just
yep.
thought you would be really good at it.
Yeah,
So
but like I say, if anybody's interested and they want to do something different, I'm fine with that, but
Well, I think that I would also point out that there's no department head that I know of that wouldn't be happy to sit down with any member of a finance committee who had any questions. And I think that, so people can also avail themselves of that. This is probably more so that the department head knows who to reach out to. If, like with Chief Sullivan, a lot of it is, okay, I just want to let you know that something broke. And just to give you a heads up that we might be coming, looking for your reserve fund down the road, things like that. So that's fine. So George will stay with that. Hannah has had schools in Monty Tech.
I'll keep it.
You'll keep it? Okay. Green Communities Task Force, Jay, you have that. Is that something that you're interested in keeping, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Sewer Commission,
I'll stick with that. Unless
okay.
somebody else has a desire to.
Okay, the School Building Committee and the Building Reuse Committee are gone.
That's done.
As of right now, I still have Mark appointed as the Finance Committee representative to the Charter Review Commission. Is there anyone that has any issue with that? The Charter Review?
oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
No, I thought you wanted to do that.
You
still.
wanted to do
Yeah.
that, and I'm just going to,
Yeah.
basically, I'm happy to stay with that. I just wanted to make
Yeah, I
sure
think
that
that's a good
if there's
idea.
anybody else on the committee that was interested in participating on the Charter Review Committee, I am the other rep, and I'm happy to pass that off if anybody's interested.
I think you've done such a great job.
Yeah, I bet you haven't even watched the video.
In addition to which, there's a consistency there because it's a process that spans fiscal years.
Okay, yes, it does. Okay, then, is there any other department or committee that we feel like we've missed, that we want to make sure that we get to? Okay, then we can move on to the next agenda item. Okay, we were going to be reviewing data collected by Mark and George as it relates to budget discussions down the road. And I'm not sure where you are with, ready to present? Oh, look, Mark has stuff.
I have some stuff.
We'll talk to Mark first. Okay, very good.
So it's a starting point. I never expected that there is so much data available. The moment you realize that Excel can no longer do the job, that's when you realize that it gets complicated. So what I did here is I just focused on 3 years and 3-4 expenditures, and I picked 10 towns which are a little bit similar to Lunenburg, just to see a little bit how we are. Then depending on whom you talk to, the selection of towns you should pick are always different. And I ended up at the end with a spreadsheet which pretty much has about 180 towns in a size from 8,000 to 12,000 in population. And that's where it started. What I then tried to do, and I will guide you through it, is I just picked 3 years, and I picked 2013, 14, 15, because those numbers were readily available. 2017 numbers, for some of the towns, I couldn't get them without calling after them, and then just time ran out. And 2016, I simply didn't have the time to enter it in my spreadsheet yet. But the idea behind is I wanted to understand how our town invests or spends money different compared to others. And if I see a big difference, I wanted to drill down further. So what I'm sharing here, oops. And if you're interested, I can.
Do we have extra copies
There
down
is,
here?
right here.
Okay. Do you want to mark?
Yeah.
Is that for people too, or?
No, that's
Those
my-
your notes, okay.
That's my backup in case somebody has questions.
Okay.
So which one is the first one? Fire, police. Let's start with police. So pretty much the municipalities I picked are Maynard, Littleton, Groton, Lunenburg, Leicester, Winchendon, Pepperell, Townsend, and for some reason Ashby. I think that's your fault. And surprisingly, really, to a lot of expenditure, Ashby reports 0. That means they just don't have them. I don't want to go too much into depth, but I think it shows a little bit in terms of police expenditure. It shows a little bit on where we are located compared to the other towns. I didn't drill down yet in how many policemen and so on, what that means. I just wanted to share some of the data so you get an idea of where it makes sense to drill down.
Okay.
So police 2013, then you see police 2014. If we look at the number of Lunenburg, 2013 was higher than 2014. Yeah, 150K about, and I don't.
I do know why.
You know why?
I do know why. That was when they went, I believe I know why, but I believe that's when they went to the regional dispatch.
Okay, that makes sense.
I believe that was because basically they then did not have to add part of the reason for going to the regional dispatch was to avoid the costs of adding a second dispatcher for all shifts.
Okay.
So I believe that's probably when that happened.
Yeah. And then 2015 remained very stable, so that was still the same dispatch model and so on. If you look at fire, if you compare Lunenburg and Groton just for fire spending, you see it's a pretty impressive difference of almost 500K. And that difference is a bit smaller in 2014. But again, in 2015, it's going back to almost being a 500K difference. So it's just interesting to see a little bit what's going on without going deeper in the why. Education, that's a little bit the bigger numbers. It shows a little bit how education spending progressed between 2013, 14 and 15. Lunenburg 13 and 14 remained very stable. 15 went up by roughly 800K. What is still very noticeable is we are pretty much at the head of the spending globally. And that's why I drilled a little bit further down in the next chart, where it's education, I think, per capita. And that shows just also some interesting numbers. And sorry about the door code, but that's how all my numbers are organized. I wouldn't find my own data any longer. That's my cheat sheet.
Okay.
So do you think Lunenburg's enrollments are higher than Littleton? Did you get into that kind of?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm at a point now where I have, it's now difficult without a beamer, but I have it now in a data model. Now I can pretty much pick every year, every town, every item, and can compare it against each other. And that allows me to drill down. Then I can overlay how many people are in the school signed up, how does it change, and so on. So I'm happy to share that with you, Heather, because I see like the challenge will be now it's started, it needs to be updated probably every year with the actual data. I try to get help from Mass Analysis or some of the other websites which do that in a regular base, but for some odd reasons they stopped all at 2015.
Really?
Yeah. And I called them and they just said they ran out of funding and they don't know
If they'll get funded again.
if they get funded again. When comparing a little bit our Lunenburg numbers to Groton, I found something which is very interesting. The Groton has a special website which is a finance information website. A finance information website is where the normal people can go to and say, my tax money of $8,000, how is it spent? And then you can pick year 2015 and it tells you exactly how the tax money is spent, in which bucket, and you can drill down. Like how much money spends my town on snow removal. And then you get an actual number and it's really, really impressive. So I was talking to the IT guy there because I wanted to know how they did it. And they told me that's an application which was developed by the town of Arlington, and it's public domain. That means it's free software. You just pretty much need to spin up a server, enter the data, and it gets published automatically. So I'm half done with that server, and I think in about 4 to 6 weeks I need to talk to him. But in 4 to 6 weeks, I think we can show it because it's really a great tool. If somebody has question how budget is spent, it's very visual. You don't need to go through big spreadsheets. It's very easy to understand.
Okay.
So that's where I am now.
Great.
Right, so your next step then, aside from having it available online, were you planning on drilling down into?
I want to drill down definitely police, fire, and education as the 3 areas where I'm interested, and now definitely cable access.
Okay.
Can I make a recommendation? Sure. As you keep building this? You know what would really help is, like, for instance, on the police, under each town, if you could put, like, the population, like, in, like, a red bar under each of them, so you could kind of get a visual as to money being spent per people,
Yeah.
per resident. I think that would really help. Is that the-
Per capita.
oh, okay.
That's the advantage of
Okay, so per capita would be per actual census-based,
correctly.
which is, so,
Yeah, okay, sorry.
so is the per capita based on a census year?
Census, yeah.
Okay, so it basically, it will be static through those 3
Yeah,
years?
yeah.
It won't change?
It will. It's steps.
It will change?
No, it's steps.
Okay,
Every 3 years or
okay,
Okay.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, that would,
yeah. It's
that would add to the visual
I'm
as I'm looking at this.
yeah, definitely. Currently, it's 3 sheets because I couldn't combine it into one in an easy way without
Yeah.
breaking everything. I think the overtime is also something which is very interesting on the same chart.
Yep.
But that's,
Because, I mean, if I was just to take a rough guess,
yeah. Yep.
The town of Ashby is probably about half the size of our town.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you kind of saw that, it might help
Yep.
understand what you're doing there, but
Definitely.
that's good.
Now, you had also mentioned that you did, at the last meeting, that you did note a difference in education spending for towns that were regional school districts versus,
Definitely.
okay,
I haven't been able to drill down on that.
okay, all right,
But
so
that's part of,
it would probably be good to highlight which of those towns are members of a
Yeah.
regional school, because actually, I think 3 of them are part of the same school district. I could be wrong, but I thought that Pepperell, Townsend, and Ashby were all the same.
They are.
Pepperell, Townsend.
They're all part of
definitely.
North Middlesex.
North Middlesex.
So.
Yeah.
So it's, which is interesting to me that the per student cost is different
Exactly.
across the 3 towns, even though they're in a regional school. Okay, so it's very interesting. Does anybody have any questions or comments for? No? Anybody there having a first peek? I mean, basically, this is a first peek, and part of what we want to do is just get some sense of data as we're before we come into budget season, so, so people have a shot at looking at some baseline data.
One thing that comes to mind
Sure.
as you keep drilling into this stuff.
Okay, just for, actually, because Hannah's going to be using the video for minute taking, if you could be a little closer to the mic, that would be probably.
Appreciate it.
I was going to suggest that in your school numbers, does that include, like, the Volk schools? Like, Lunenburg's part of Monty Tech,
Mm-hmm.
so there's
The school numbers are aggregated. They are both Monitech and the public school.
Is there a way to pull that out?
Yep.
Yeah, I would say, the reason why I would pull it out is that the assessment structure for Monty Tech has a different cost per pupil per district based on what the state says that those towns can afford, which is an interesting kind of way to do it, but,
And when you, if you're gonna do that, you wanna compare to like towns on Pepperell, Ashby, they're part of the Neshoba Regional
Yeah.
folks, so
Yeah.
there's a little bit more,
It's
a little bit more work for you to do there.
it's once you open the can of worms, they really come out.
yes, yes, yes. Well, and I think that's one of the cautions, and it would be very interesting I'll have to go to Groton and look at their finance page. Because one of my concerns at looking at just raw financial data is there's a lot that goes, that isn't there. But, I mean, it's definitely a great place to start discussion and to start, just help us focus as we get to the budget season.
Nice job.
Any other questions?
Good job, though.
Yeah, very good job, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for trolling that data, that was great.
Maybe quickly, if somebody is interested. So that's how
Groton has it set up.
That's how Groton has it set up. And then you can drill down on revenue, and
Yes, so, yeah.
the buyers need to,
No, actually, that will be, it will be great. I will look at that, and I will encourage people to, if you're interested, to check out the Groton site. I know that there were, years ago, John, you might remember, you might be the only one who might remember, we were talking about trying to find a website that would do the percentages spent on. I don't know if you
Yep.
recall that. And-
I do remember that initiative, but I don't know what happened to it.
Yeah, I think we just didn't get anywhere with it because one of the issues that came up was, like the fact that somebody has high debt may or may not mean anything. It really kind of depends, and that was one of the, I think, the concerns that the previous town manager had was, it's all great and it's all important for people to know, and it's also just good for people to be able to generate questions around that.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to George. You're not.
Well, all right, so I'm just coming back from vacation, and then life after vacation sort of got in the way of a lot of progress, but where I am right now is I printed the fiscal policies off the website, and I've been reading through the policy, trying to get the different data points that I'm trying to collect and put into like one dashboard, so we can kind of like see everything. That's sort of where I am, and one of the things I was going to ask, the debt service schedules, is that, it says here that I can ask for that from you,
From Karen,
Karen?
absolutely.
All right, is that something you could email me or something, or do you have it in a spreadsheet?
Oh, yeah, I can definitely email it.
Okay, because I'm sort of trying to get better at the details that supports all the higher numbers that we look at. And then I was going to work with John offline to see if I could get a list of all the projects on the capital planning
Sure,
in the works. And
sure. I actually email that to you,
Okay.
so let me do that.
And what I'll do is I'm gonna just start trying to take all these data points and get them into like a nice looking chart. And I just, thank you, Terry, I just found out where the 5 and 10 year future
The forecast.
revenue plans are, so I'll go to that and I'll pull that data in and try and lay it all on top of everything, so if anything, it helps explain what the data means.
No, that'll be excellent. And I would encourage you also to include the fire and police plans.
Yeah, I've got that too from.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any questions or comments for George as he embarks on this? Your plan was to turn this dashboard into a Google Doc or use Google for that?
Yeah.
So
okay.
at some point, you'll be able to just make that available for us to...
Yeah, I'll talk to the IT guy and we'll put it on a town drive that
Okay.
everybody can get to.
Okay.
Can you think of any other data points that I need to try and get into the weeds a little bit to add to this?
I think if, and maybe we can have a better answer next week or next meeting, but I think your best bet would be to consider, as we went through the budget process, as we went through the town meetings, what came up. Certainly the property report that we got from all of the buildings that are currently,
Yep,
what it would take to do.
the property assessment.
Thank you. I'm having significant word-finding problems. Would be one thing I can think of, but anything that struck you as, I wish I knew more about that.
I
Hannah?
would rewatch the town meeting just to see what the crowd brought in for questions, just to see, okay, well, maybe this would be a good point.
Right. Okay, and I assume that you were planning on putting information in there specific to the levy itself?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's sort of why, on the way in, I found the town report. I'm hoping to find those data points in here
Okay,
and go through it.
excellent. All of a sudden, I don't feel busy enough because you folks are doing all kinds of things, and we're just going to move right on to John Henshaw, who is working on the policy change for free cash.
Let me pass this over to you all. Here are 2 copies for Hannah and you, and I've got 4 extra copies for the people in the audience.
And I want to say that the point of the revision for the free cash policy came to bring this more in line with the Board of Selectmen town policies, specifically as regards to the use of free cash for funding OPEB to the extent that we have free cash to move that way.
Yeah. Actually, we had a free cash, we have a free cash policy already, and because the situation changed a little bit, we were apportioning some free cash. One of the priorities for apportioning free cash was to fund the road, the pavement management initiative, but that is being funded by another process. So what Heather decided was Heather asked for was to prioritize the policy for applying free cash, particularly the priorities number 2 and number 3, which have been reworded. And what we also want to do was to address the inconsistencies of the free cash policy for the application of free cash, so that it was more consistent with the wording of the OPEB trust fund policy. And part 3 was the priority use of allocation of free cash to the special purpose stabilization fund account, again, so that it was more consistent with that policy. What you've got in front of you is, as far as I can tell, with Heather's a lot of input from Heather, and thank you very much, is consistent with the current policies for both the OPEB trust fund and the special purpose stabilization account in terms of wording. So if anybody has any changes,
Okay, I'm going to assume that this is everybody's first read of this?
Heather and I have shared a couple of emails back and forth.
Yeah, I've seen it, as well, so.
But yes, everybody's first read, the rest of the committee's first read.
Okay, if people would like, we can put it on the agenda to vote to accept it
Next time.
next meeting.
Yeah.
So please review it. I'm sorry, John?
No, that's okay, go ahead, then I will interject one more thing.
Okay.
Okay, right now? Good.
Yeah, sounds good.
I think that once we meet and if we approve it, then we can put it in front of the Board of Selectmen for their approval, because this is just a recommendation.
Yes,
Yeah.
we would vote, yes, I'm sorry, we
Yeah.
will vote to recommend the change to the policy to board, yes.
Madam Chair, could I ask one question? In regards to this policy?
And please note that these are just priorities, these aren't the full extent
Right.
of the use.
No, I
yes.
clearly understand
Okay.
that. Dave Passios, again, 56 Whiting Street. I seem to recollect in a previous meeting, and I can't tell you which meeting it was, but there was some conversation about how the 5% or what number is used when the 5% for stabilization is calculated. I seem to think it had something to do with the debt level also being included in that number, then that it shouldn't be, or I could have that wrong, but there was something in the total amount of dollars that was being calculated, out of the 5%, yeah, it was a total dollar amount, and 5% of that dollar amount was going into the stabilization account, and there was some discussion back and forth about part of that number, that total number really shouldn't be included in there. And I can't remember if it was debt or
I believe it had to do with a special stabilization fund that was particular to town, Tri-Town Landing.
Okay, it might have
Yeah.
been.
And
I
that's
honestly
what was
don't,
in the 5%, and in the 5%, since that was incorporated into the 5%, and since there's that, whether or not it should be, I think that was what the question was
Okay.
at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And I believe that, John, I don't know if we addressed that here, or that was addressed someplace else. But it basically goes to the total, what the 5% is the total omnibus budget.
Right.
So,
I might have missed it. I was trying to read this while this was being discussed. So what's the language change in number 2?
it wasn't there before.
Oh, it wasn't there at all.
Right.
Number 2 actually was the point that established the second highest priority for allocation of free cash to the pavement management fund. That has now a different funding mechanism, and so that really is moot. So because we've freed up free cash, if that makes sense, to be reallocated in this case to something that will be with us forever and a day, which is the OPEB trust fund.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So it reflects what the funding mechanisms are now currently in the town.
Okay.
I think the other thing that's different is this one states a percentage.
Yeah.
And whereas the pavement management plan didn't.
Right.
And that this is primarily to address, an unfunded liability. Even though it's a small piece, even though it's a small amount of money, even though it's going to change every year, it's something, and it's basically something that the town can show that we are trying to operate in good faith when the bond rating companies come in and give us our ratings.
Exactly. It's a way for us to demonstrate real good faith in addressing doing what we can to address the OPEB trust fund issue.
Anything else on the change? Anything, does it meet the town's?
Thank you, Heather.
Okay, then we will put that on the agenda for next meeting
Am I getting an invoice?
to vote. To vote to recommend, so I remember that it's to vote to recommend. Next up is a review of minutes. We have no minutes to review, is that correct? I don't think I saw any come through from the last meeting. We don't have minutes. We do?
Oh, from the last meeting?
From 7:26. Should I have had minutes? Did I miss them?
Not send? I didn't send anything out?
I didn't get it.
Did anybody get minutes from 7:26?
I'm looking right now.
Okay.
I think so.
No, I didn't get them.
Okay, so we'll put that on the next agenda as well for 7:26 minutes.
Yeah, maybe I just forgot to send them out.
So that means that we'll get through the rest of the agenda so much faster. Do we have any reports from the town manager or the financial officer? We do.
Just some quick updates. So the fiscal 19 state budget was signed by the governor on July 26th, and that had a slight increase in cherry sheet numbers. And so that changed our overall revenue estimates and the assessments, the chargebacks. So an overall increase of $162,133 in spending capacity. And that's keeping all other estimated receipts and revenues the same as town meeting. So we don't have a final number for new growth yet. That hasn't been certified. And we are waiting on final receipt numbers for fiscal 18. So all other numbers keeping the same. That provides us an additional $162,000.
Okay.
Good. Do we have any kind of a forecast on, like, was it chapter 90? Is that the school?
Chapter 90 is the roads.
Chapter 90 is
The
roads.
70.
Chapter
70?
70, yes. That was one of the numbers that changed in the cherry sheet.
Better
So,
or worse, or?
a little more in chapter 70
Okay,
funds.
so that's included in the 162K?
Yes.
Thank you.
A majority of the changes were in chargebacks, assessments, in charter tuition, choice
Good.
money.
Good.
The other positive news is that also in the state budget was $130,000 for the Turkey Hill asbestos abatement.
Oh, wonderful.
So we'll be able to reappropriate those funds that were included in the fiscal 19 capital plan at the special town meeting towards other capital projects.
Great.
So does that resolve the asbestos problem, or is it just,
That's to pay for that project that was included in the fiscal 19 capital plan.
okay, so was that like a study, or was that actual work? to
It's
remove it?
actual work.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
Right,
and
that
it's
was
been a
part of-
phased project over the last few years.
okay.
Is that the last phase, or there's still another
I think
phase?
there may be one more phase.
Yeah, I think it's phase 2 of 3.
Okay.
That's
That's
wonderful
great.
news.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, before we get to talking about the next meetings, is there any public comment from the public this time?
Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street again. Just like to reiterate something that I've said in the past that I think really needs to be considered. For the last 10 years, all I've been hearing about is our non-exempted debt kind of strangling us in our year-to-year budgets. I am concerned about putting as much money away for rainy days as we do, where we could be paying down non-exempt debt, which would free up money in the budget. I'd just like to keep reiterating that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything from the committee? Okay.
Well,
Oh, I'm
just
sorry.
Just one more relative to the next meeting. I wondered if we could talk a little bit about, let me see here. just a minute. We'd put on the agenda for next meeting, new growth, just a brief discussion about new growth and how to factor new growth in when we're doing anticipated budgets. The point is that new growth is in fact a component of the year-to-year growth in available funds, but it also carries with it a longer-term demand or expectation for more town government because new growth is tied to growth in population. And I just wanted to sort of get some sort of an idea or some sort of discussion going on to explore that.
Okay.
Sounds like a data point for my.
It sounds like a data
dashboard.
point for your dashboard, yeah.
We gotta come up with a name for that.
George's dashboard.
George Martin dashboard.
Okay. All right, basically, as I said at the beginning, after talking about making sure that this meeting is televised in the future, or at least taped, I'm just going to go through the calendar as I see it up until the end of November, and if for any reason you can think of, if you can think of any reason why we should not meet at that time, let me know. But August 23rd, this is, again, it's going to be every second and every fourth Thursday. So August 23rd is the next meeting. In September, we would have 9/13 and 9/27.
Okay.
Okay. In October, we would have 10/11 and 10/25.
I can tell you I'm not going to be here for the 10:25.
Okay, But it's not because it's a national holiday, so we should still meet? As far as you know? Okay, well, actually, that's part of it, is there a holiday I'm missing? Which is part of the reason for going through this, and then 11/8 and 11/22. Okay, the one question I would have would be...
11/22 is Thanksgiving.
11/22 is Thanksgiving?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a national holiday. There you go.
Wow, Shazam.
Son of a gun. Okay, so,
So no 11/22.
Right.
Say that's Thanksgiving.
isn't that funny? Okay. I should have realized that, because my birthday is the 29th, and it rarely, it's like Thanksgiving is never on the 29th. All right, then,
12/6. So 12, is that right?
it wouldn't be 12/6, it would be 12/13.
12/13, yeah, that's right, the first Thursday, so 12/13.
And I would assume we,
Then 12/24 is probably out.
Yeah, we would probably, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we would probably skip
12/27.
Christmas,
Yeah.
right around
Okay.
Christmas. But, all right. I'm going to assume that there's a possibility or a potential that there would be a special town meeting in the fall? Should we assume that? And that one of these meetings dates would probably be a public hearing? Is that a good guess?
that there'll be a special town meeting in the fall.
I'm sorry, special town meeting?
in the fall.
In the fall?
Yes, so the Board of Selectmen will be discussing it at one of their upcoming meetings.
Okay. Mostly I was just trying to figure out where on the calendar it was likely, so 11/22 being Thanksgiving, then we won't meet.
Keep your Tuesdays from November 13th to the 27th.
Keep our Tuesdays open?
6 or 13.
Because you would
Okay.
want us to do the public hearing on a Tuesday?
No, I meant.
For the special town meeting.
Oh, you would, that would be a Tuesday night, okay. All right, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out when it would be likely that, and I guess after you discuss it with the Board of Selectmen, I would just need to know when we would likely be doing the public hearing. So, that would be great. That would be great. Is that,
Okay.
it's going to be in the next few weeks that you're talking about that? Okay, super.
Okay, good.
And then 12/13, I imagine that we will meet.
Meeting.
And basically, once we come into January, we're going to be hitting up the financial forecast and capital plan. We're right back into budget season in January.
But did we want to start budget season early, I thought? Like just discussing things in general?
We will, yes.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
basically, we will definitely have a meeting on all of those dates except for 11/22.
Right.
At which point, if there's anything that anyone wants to raise as a question or discussion item around the budget process, we can do it at any of those meetings. Just let me know and I'll put it on the agenda.
Okay.
And then, once we get through the special town meeting and get through the Christmas season, then we'll be, as I said, right back into it. But I should probably clarify by saying that what we might want to start, I don't think we can start actually, I should ask Heather if there's any possibility that we could have any of the budget here. Nobody would be ready to do a budget hearing or a budget, to come and present their budget before us before you do the budget presentation. Is that correct? The first budget presentation?
Before February, mid-February?
Right. So I shouldn't request that anybody do budget presentations beginning then. Or that they wouldn't, although basically, I guess it would also just be if any member of any department head, and actually what we can do is make that request through you to let people know. If they want to come and talk to us in advance of the budget meetings, we're always happy to hear them if they feel like it's rushed because I know that sometimes that's a good place to just have questions answered. Hannah?
I was just wondering if maybe we could do the schools with the library and council on aging this year, because last year, I know there was an agenda time issue, but it kind of bounced back and forth when I was trying to listen to the presentation that Loxie had, and...
That was my fault.
No, I'm just saying, I just think it'd be better, like, to fully focus on it and maybe get more detailed.
Part of it was my fault, part of it was snow, and part of it was,
Yeah.
because we crammed a lot.
I know we had to cramp up,
Yeah,
so... That's what,
And I think
We'll have
that
to start it
schools was
earlier.
initially scheduled earlier, but
Yeah.
asked to switch.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
can't remember why.
it probably snow.
No.
Oh.
They were earlier in the schedule, and then someone needed to switch. I think sewer needed to switch, so somebody requested a switch.
Okay.
So there was a switch in the schedule. But if you'd like to see the schools go with the Council on Aging and Library, that,
I just think that they deserve a little bit more time because they're a bigger budget item.
sure. Trying to think who we initially had them with. Yeah, actually, we initially had them so that they would just be presenting with PAC and Money Tech.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, that's.
should have been
perfect.
fine. It just didn't end up that way. All right, so then I will send this on to Joe over at Public Access Cable so that we'll be on their agenda for taping.
Okay.
If there's nothing else, then I'd certainly entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will move that we adjourn.
Do I have a
I
second?
will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.